Okay, so we're just going to walk through how to set up a property in Portfolio Manager for the City of Portland benchmarking reporting. So I just created a new test um, Portfolio Manager account, and that would be the first step is just creating your account. But then it'll kind of look something like this if this is your first time reporting. So what you'll do is go to this blue Add a Property button and then search for your property type, which they give you a lot of options. Really just choose the one that seems, you know, the most accurate. Make your best, guess on which to go with on here. Really for Portfolio Manager calculates metrics and compares buildings against each other based on this property type. So if you just choose, whatever is the most makes the most sense, I guess. Um, and then you'll select if your building is just a single property or if it's more than one. So if it's like a campus type situation, you would select the more than one and then enter how many buildings there are. We're just going to go with this single property for now, but if you do have more than one property, this campus guidance option here gives a lot of information about how you would enter that kind of information. If you have multiple buildings and they share meters separately, they might all share an electricity meter but have two separate gas meters or something like that. That's the kind of guidance you would look to or look for on there. And then these are all going to be existing buildings. Then we'll get started. I'm just going to do just like kind of run through here with test info. Um, so the gross floor area does include like your basement of the building as well. This information is how we create our covered properties list. It's based on the gross floor area of the building. So our ordinance only requires buildings 20,000 square feet or larger to report. So every building, if this number is less than 20,000, either the number is incorrect or you don't need to report. So if it is less than that, I would just recommend reaching out to benchmarking at portlandmaine.gov, just to either get the right square footage or correct our covered properties list. So I'm just going to go with 20,000 for our test building. And then occupancy is always going to be 100 unless part of the property is like completely cut off from, you know, any utilities, I guess. If like part of the property is under construction, and typically in that case, we would grant an exemption for that year. So typically I would just say put 100 for this unless, that's the case. And then this changed this year, this look for our standard IDs. So we need to enter the unique building ID for the property. So that's under this standard ID other option. And it is the fourth option from the bottom on this drop-down box. It's called Unique Building Identifier. And then you would get this unique building identifier from either the notice that you got in the mail from us saying that, this building is required to report. That list of unique building identifiers or UBIDs are also listed on the portlandmaine.gov/energy benchmarking webpage, or you can just email benchmarking@portlandmaine.gov if you're having a hard time finding it, and we can just send it to you. So I would recommend finding that and then just copying and pasting it into this ID box. I'm just going to use one that I have on here. And then from there, the only time I would recommend so you can include your property's parking areas. I would recommend including that if you have like utility lighting poles in your parking area that are on the same meter as your building. electricity meter, and portfolio manager is able to calculate how much electricity they think that square footage of parking is using. So it's not attributed to your building's energy usage. It would be kind of separated from there. So you're not like taking credit for, or, being yeah, you're not taking on that energy usage that's actually part of your parking area. We're really just looking at the building for these reports. So I'm gonna just for example say that my building does have parking. And I guess in that case, I want this to be more than 20,000. We'll do 21,000. And so I put that my building's energy consumption includes parking areas, and then continue. So from here, if you're looking to do like an Energy Star certification or something like that, which is not required by our ordinance at all, I would recommend you can, input some of this information. It's not required by our ordinance, but if you really wanted to get into it, you definitely can go into, these kinds of numbers if you have that. Because I put that my building has parking area, I'm going to put in how much square footage is in my parking area so that portfolio manager can make those calculations on how much electricity usage to give to the parking area and take away from the building itself. So I'm going to put 1,000 for like an open parking lot. And then these are pretty much explained on here, but if you have, part of your building is, or your building is over top of like an open parking area, that would be like a partially enclosed parking garage. And then there's like the completely enclosed parking garage option as well. So if you don't have those, you need to put in 0 for these numbers. And then I'm going to add my property and continue. So here my entire property is set up. I've created the property in Portfolio Manager. This is my like property profile. I haven't entered any meters yet, or usage information, so that's why these are all blank, but I should have, my correct building information here, and then building details, which would be that square footage, is listed in this table here under the details tab. And then my property gross floor areas here. If you have like a red exclamation point in this details tab, that could be for a few reasons. It's typically if the gross floor areas do not add up. So if you put that your total gross floor area was 21,000, and then I don't know if there's an exclamation point here, it's typically because the gross floor area is incorrect. And if you do see that, what you'll want to do is you need to go to this action column here, and I want to edit use details, and that'll give you the option to correct that square footage. And this you would need to do the same in this basic information edit option as well. We don't have that on here, so I'm not going to go into those, but from here we have our building created, our gross floor area looks correct, and we have our standard ID unique building identifier listed here. So the next thing you'll do is go to create your meters. So in this energy tab is where you'll input your electricity, natural gas, fuel oil, like propane, any of that stuff is going to go in this energy tab here. So I'm just going to get started and add a meter. And I'll add an electricity meter, which is purchased from the grid. And if you have more than one, you can go ahead and put 2 in here, or however many you have. And then I'm going to get started. So I typically rename the meter name to the account number. It's easier to do that if you have multiple electricity accounts, or if you might not be the person doing the reporting next year. It just makes it a bit easier to keep track of what accounts you're looking at. So here I input, this is just a sample account number for like a CMP account. Our units for electricity will be kilowatt hours. And then the date that the meter became active needs to be before the start date of your first entry when you're first, creating this meter. So I'm currently going to be reporting for calendar year 2023. So my first entry needs to be starting in December of 2022 and ending in January 2023, because we need to make sure that every day in the calendar year is accounted for. So this date the meter became active should be sometime in at least December of 2022. So I'm going to pretend that my bill that I have in front of me has a start date, like meter read dates of December 26, 2022, and then the end read date would be sometime in January. So we've created the meter, and I'll just select this blue Create Meter button. And from here, if you have those bills in front of you or the usage information in front of you, you can go ahead and start adding your entries. So that start date is again going to be December 26th of 2022. And then the end date, this will auto-populate from a month out from the start date. But typically it's like a day or two off. So we'll just, if you click on this calendar button, the calendar will pop out and you can just change the date to whatever it says on your utility bill. And then you can enter in your usage information here. This is all of the information that's required by our ordinance. But if for your own purposes, you want to keep track of total costs for your utility bills, usage information, you can absolutely put that in here. It won't do anything to your benchmarking report for us, but just as, a way to keep track of things, you can absolutely put in that information there. And then if you have all of your bills, you can just go ahead and add another entry. It'll again auto-populate and you can enter in the usage. So I'm going to go ahead and continue from here instead of entering in the 12 months, but I'm reporting for 2023 right now, so I want to make sure my last entry on here ends in at least January of 2024. That's so that every day in calendar year 2023 is accounted for. That's definitely one of the main errors we get in benchmarking reports, is that the first entry could have started in January 2nd, but because January 1st wasn't accounted for, it is, they portfolio manager can't calculate the metrics they need to, and the report is not complete. So definitely just recommend making sure you have the entire calendar year, especially that's important for your first year reporting, with this first entry here needing to be in December of the previous year. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. And then I want to make sure that I show that my meters account for the total energy consumption for my building. The only reason you would not put that is if you don't have all of the meters or access to all of the meters for your building. And also typically in that case, I would recommend reaching out to benchmarking at portlandmaine.gov. We can talk about if there's a possibility for an exemption. We really want to make sure we have complete reports for benchmarking, or else, we want to make sure these are meaningful reports and have full data. So for the most part, we're going to put that this accounts for the total energy consumption for my building, and apply selections. And then from here, so we have our electricity meter, and then you'll go ahead and do the exact same thing for whatever your heating source is, if it's not electricity. So you add a meter, and say mine's natural gas, 1 meter, get started. Again, I would name this whatever my account number is for Unitil. And then important here, the units show up in two different ways on the Unitil bills typically. We recommend using the therms just because if you request that data from Unitil directly, they typically send it to you in therms. So I would just recommend using that number. And then the date the meter became active, again, needs to be before the start date of your first entry. So I'm going to use that same December 26th date. And create the meter. And then it's the same thing as the electricity meter where you enter in your start date and then the meter reading end date, change it if it's a day off, and then your usage in therms. And then again, total cost if it, if you so choose to include it. And then you can enter in all that information and then continue. And again, all of these should be selected because they account for the total energy consumption for my building. And apply selections. Okay, and then lastly, we do require water reporting for our benchmarking reports right now. This is, again, one of our top errors that we get in our reports is that people forget to include the water meters. So just make sure that this meter is also up to date. You want to include, it should be municipally supplied potable water and, choose what makes sense. We're really looking at our building. So typically it's indoor, but if you have a yard space, things like that, just choose whatever makes sense for your meter, then get started. I'll want to make this whatever my account number is for the water account. So I'm just gonna make one up right here. And then the units are typically CCF, which is this first option. On the bill, it might say this like HCF, but they're the same thing. So it's going to be CCF here. And then again, the same thing for the date the meter became active and create meter. And then you'll do the same thing that we've been doing for the other meters in adding your entries. So for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and continue. And then I want to say that this is my total water consumption for my building and apply selections. So I put no entries in for my water meter. And so that's things that you can go back to and enter that in. So if you are going to go back and enter in usage information after a meter is already created, all you need to do is go to either, say I'm going to do update my electricity meter. So I want to go to this energy tab, scroll down a little bit, and then go to the electric grid meter, select that, and then it'll open up and show your latest entries here. So from there, you just want to go to add another entry, and then that's where you can enter in usage information. Sometimes people ask if you can enter this in throughout the year, and you absolutely can. Enter it in whenever it makes sense for you and your operations. And reports will only be submitted, during this reporting time, which is typically, March through May 1st when reports are due, and then after then. So really you can enter this information in whenever it makes sense. And then just make sure you save bills. So if I want to go back to my building profile, I just select my building name up here and back to my building profile. Our ordinance does not require reporting waste and materials, so you do not need to do anything in this tab. Portfolio manager is used for a lot of different municipalities and, for different reasons. So there's a lot of extra, things on here that you don't need to worry about for Portland benchmarking reporting. So I'm going to pretend like I did enter in all of the usage information for my meters and I'm ready to submit my report. Um, Hopefully none of these have little exclamation points, which would show like an error or something missing in one of these meters, and mine doesn't. But if it does, you know, you can go into that tab and then typically the meter will also have an exclamation point, and that'll show you what meter you need to, revisit. So I'm going to pretend like my meters are all complete. I have all of my usage information entered in for calendar year 2023, and I'm ready to submit my report. So if this is the first time submitting your report, you need to connect with the City of Portland's benchmarking account so that reports can be submitted. We just started doing this in 2023. So if you've been reporting for years, this is something that is new and you need to make sure that your profile is shared with us. So to do that, you want to go up to the top right corner, this contacts option, and I want to add new contacts, and I'm going to add myself, but really this is the City of Portland's account. You could look up by organization name, but sometimes it's easier to just type in the benchmarking contact name, which is myself, and then search. Hopefully it'll come up. Perfect. So I'm gonna do this. Okay, these are both test ones, but I promise mine will come up here and it'll say Sustainability Associate, City of Portland, Maine, and not test when you do it. So I'm gonna connect on here. Hopefully it will load. Okay, great. And then I'm going to go to this sharing tab. So I need to accept I need to accept this connection request on here, which should be in the notifications. Okay. I'm gonna just go ahead and just try to share it and we'll see what comes up. So share or edit access to a property. I want to select my property, which these are all the city ones. I'm gonna go to test one. I've done quite a few tests. Apply selections. And then you want to go to, my name should show up on here as your contact. And that's what you'll select. It's not coming up in here right now, but we're going to pretend like you selected Aaron Farrell and then it'll say City of Portland, Maine in parentheses. Let's see if I can just pick a random. We'll pick South Portland. But if you're reporting for the City of Portland, you need to select City of Portland, Maine on here. And then personalize sharing and exchange data and continue. So from here, again, this should say my name, Aaron Farrell. That's who you're going to be submitting to for City of Portland. I'm going to go to this last column, exchange data. And then I want to give full access for all of my meters. Or maybe it's, yeah, we can give full access for all the meters. And then we do not want to share forward. So we'll do no for that and apply selections. And then from there, you're going to do share property. I do not want to send this to Susan, so I'm not going to do that. And then you should receive a confirmation email that says your property has been shared with Aaron Farrell, City of Portland, Maine. And that is how you share the property. You only need to go through that setup process, that contact connection and sharing property one time. In next year's reporting, it will already be connected, so you do not need to go through that process. It's just already going to be shared, and so the report will automatically be submitted during this like reporting time period. So you don't have to worry about, you know, resending in or resharing your profile every single year. All you need to worry about is updating your meter usage information. So from here, I would just say if you have questions, email benchmarking@portlandmaine.gov. But for now, that is all for this. I'm gonna stop the recording if I ever did start it. Okay.